Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Traveling Taylor, and today I have with me Sebastian. Hi, Sebastian.
Hello.
And where are you coming to us from? Where do you live currently?
Right now I'm in Athens, Greece.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I've been there for about a month now.
Oh, okay. And okay, we'll get into that because I'm sure it's changed a lot in 2020. Um, so Sebastian is with here with me today, and he is a freelance software developer, an online trainer, a public speaker, and an entrepreneurship coach. And he comes from the third planet in the solar system. Um, I love that you added that because you love space, and actually that is our sort of mini connection. So Sebastian and I have both gone on Hacker Paradise trips, and part of being an alumni is being part of a Slack channel. So it's been very active during the pandemic because no one's really getting to travel. Um, but earlier this year, there was the space launch from, I don't know, you can probably explain it better. It was already
Yeah.
so far away. But Sebastian was kind of like leading that and keeping us all informed of what was happening. Yeah. So where does your like space interest come from, do you think?
Um, I'd say it comes from the same place as my travel interest.
Hmm.
I've always felt like not very attached to any specific country. And yeah, over the past few years, going nomad and then really getting into space was like again from the same movement of trying to get closer to my human nature and my earthian nature. So that's actually also kind of a running gag. That's why I always answer this. Like when people ask me where I'm from, I
Uh-huh.
don't say I'm from France, which is like you can probably guess from my accent.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. But I usually say I'm from a third planet of the solar system because it just doesn't matter for me that
Mm.
I was born like out of luck in a specific country.
Yeah.
And now I just have this passport that I do have to have. But yeah, if I could have a Earth passport, I would be happy with it.
Would you ever go to like Mars or something?
Sign me up.
Okay.
Where's the
Well, I
sign up
wasn't
sheet?
sure if you
Yeah.
were like, I'm from Earth and this is where I'm gonna stay, or if you were actually, I guess if you're interested in travel and space travel, that would be a pretty cool experience.
Well, the thing is, like all jokes aside, it's yeah, it's probably gonna happen. Like there will be human people on Mars in our lifetime, but not civilians. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
maybe my
would
kids.
you, aren't they planning to take civilians to the moon soon?
There are plans right now to have like a artist project around the moon from SpaceX with a Japanese investor guy.
Hmm.
It's I think the project is called Hello Moon or something. It's really
Hmm.
interesting. So this guy is basically paying for the whole trip, paying for the innovation that goes into the rocket as well because it's not ready yet.
Hmm.
And then he vouched to take I think 6 artists with him on board, and they're not going to land on the moon. They're just going to
Go
circle
around
around
it.
and come back.
Yeah,
But yeah, that would be very interesting to watch for sure.
I would do that. You actually do. I mean, yes, the space travel is really cool, but I brought you on because I want to talk more about your digital nomad life. And you do a lot of things. So you're a software developer, online teacher, entrepreneurship coach. Can you kind of talk about how that journey started for you? So you said you've always been interested in sort of just moving around and,
Yeah.
travel in general. Um, but where did this idea of kind of letting go of a home base or anything like that kind of start for you?
So yeah, I've always traveled to a certain extent. Even though I grew up in France, I spent a year in Canada, then I lived for 13 years in Belgium. So again, not very attached to any specific place, just where my friends are and where there are interesting opportunities for work. And then I was in Belgium and I was starting to get bored with it. Like I've been there for 13 years, so it was starting to show. And in the meantime, I started reading a lot about this whole digital nomadism movement. There was a lot of like Facebook groups and channels going on. I think I joined Nomad List probably 2 years before I started actually nomading. So that was also a good source. But at the same time, one, I didn't know exactly if it was for me. So it looked very glamorous and very interesting from a distance, but I didn't know if it was exactly made for me because,
Hmm.
well, I'm not exactly the typical portrait of a digital nomad, you would say. I'm not a 20 something party goer, heavy drinker,
Yeah.
all of that you can see sometimes on those groups. So it was kind of scary. And at the same time, my job was not exactly compatible because even though I was a software developer, I used to work on site for one dedicated customer at a time. So I was going to the office pretty much like an employee, even though I was a freelance. And yeah, and my clients typically were not really uh, fond of the idea of having me move remote and like work from far away. So um, I had to operate kind of a transformation with that to reinvent my personal business model, sort of.
Hmm.
And yeah, I found some projects that didn't require me to be in an office. And at the same time, I launched my first online course on Udemy about cryptocurrency and all of that.
Hmm.
And it did really well. Like it launched in September, and in December it was already making half my revenue. So I was pretty happy with it, and I thought, okay, that's just what I needed, and um, just to try the first experiments. And I really did that. Like I really tried very experimental approach first. I kept my apartment. I kept all my fail-safe in Belgium, and I started going places. So I went to a co-living space for a month just to try the whole social
Hmm.
aspect of things because
Yeah.
I'm a diehard introvert. So I wanted to make sure that this social aspect was not too invasive
Hmm.
and was still compatible with my like my character and stuff. And so I did that. It was not really a successful experiment because the co-living space was still new and there was not a lot of people there. But still, I heard some stories that gave me like made me feel like try again. And then a few months later, I joined the first trip with the Hacker Paradise, and that was it. Like I was hooked. The I did just one trip. I had a one-way ticket to Japan. I did one trip and it was amazing, even though I didn't really like the Japanese culture itself,
Hmm.
but sharing it with those people from all like backgrounds and ways of life, it was really amazing. And
Hmm.
then I wanted to know if it was just because of this group and because of this place. So I did another experiment. I joined them again in Seoul in South Korea,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, halfway through the trip, I was like, okay, now I have to make a decision because paying for my apartment back in Belgium and traveling at the same time is going to be too expensive.
Hmm.
And so, at first, I had just a moment of panic. Like, it seems too good to be true. There's got to be a catch. I'm never going to be able to do it. And yeah, again, the power of the group and the community. I think my roommate in Seoul was actually a an old time nomad from like he had been doing that for 10 years.
Hmm.
So he kind of reassured me, showed me how to do it, and just I did a spreadsheet with all my expenses and all my revenues for the next 4 months. And when I dragged the formula all the way down, the number in the last cell was actually positive. Like I was not only was it possible, it was actually less expensive to travel and to stay home.
Hmm.
So after that, I just went home, sold everything I had, my car, my motorcycle, the content of my apartments and everything. I
Hmm.
gave my notice for my apartment, and 6 weeks later, I was on a plane with a backpack and a suitcase, and that was all I owned. And
Yeah.
now I've been doing that for 2 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. You said so many things I want to unpack. Like you really you hit on so many of like my favorite points. So I'm just gonna kind of recap them and then we can dive into them. So the first one was that you, even though you were already sort of in this tech field, which most people think you have to be in to be a nomad, not true, but it can certainly help. But you didn't already have a job that allowed you to be flexible. You were still meeting one-on-one with clients, so you had to reframe your job.
Yeah.
The next thing that you said was that you weren't sure if it was for you. And that's kind of a point that I've been talking a lot more about recently is there is something about this lifestyle that people idolize a lot and they don't really go into it understanding like how they fit in or yeah if it's for them. I was the same way. I kind of was like, let me just test some of these things to see if it's for me. The third thing that you did was you didn't go out solo on your own. You joined community and you found other people.
And those things are connected. If there's one advice I have for anyone who wants to try this lifestyle is don't go at it alone right away.
Mhm,
It's the best way to crash and burn because the like there is a level of discomfort, especially when you start, when you have to adapt very quickly to different landscape, different culture, ecosystem, sometimes language. It's really kind of scary, and it can be overwhelming if you're not surrounded and if you don't have people who can give you tips and tricks or just the sheer value of like sharing those struggles together makes a whole difference.
mhm,
So, and that's always something that um, people who want to start when they look at those. So for me, Hacker Paradise was just the best answer. It's not the only travel group like that. There are many of them, but that's where their value is. For a lot of people, they look at the pricing and they say, it's too expensive. Yeah, it's more expensive than if you find your own accommodation and your own co-working space in whatever place like
mhm,
Bali, Chiang Mai, whatever. It's more expensive than that, but that's not the value. Of course, they provide you with an accommodation and with a co-working space and a SIM card and whatnot. But in addition to that, you have this community, you have this spirit, you have this surrounding of people who can help you get through the struggles and who can help you get comfortable really quickly. And it changes completely the experience. And after a few trips with the Hacker Paradise, I felt comfortable going to Bali on my own or going to
mhm,
places. But and then I joined 9 trips with Hacker Paradise over the years. Even though it's again more expensive, I just enjoy this group of people so much. And again, sharing this experience with people who have the same kind of mindset, the same
mhm,
citizen of the world kind of perspective is really, really interesting. So yeah, don't do it alone. If you like start are just starting, it's a good idea to join one of these groups.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I did do it on my own to start with because I started in New Zealand on the working holiday visa. It was the visa that kind of drew me there. And having worked and studied abroad for a long time, and I lived in London, like working before, and so I felt comfortable doing that. But I'd also done a couple of test solo trips by myself, like big trips to where I was like, yeah, is this for me? Like, do I want to, can I do it on my own? And then I also found house sitting, and house sitting ended up being my way of being able to explore New Zealand sort of more on a budget. But once I joined Hacker Paradise, which is probably about 13, 14 months after I'd been traveling, it just, it was so great to, yeah, finally be around a group of like-minded people. The conversations just start off differently. It's not this conversation of like, what do you do? How do you do that? And like, it sounds terrible, but you get really tired of having the same conversations over and over with people who don't understand your lifestyle. And so, yeah, just the tips and experience and the community, and then the continued community that I've
Yeah,
got from
that's also
Hacker Paradise has been really valuable. Um, and I also really like what you said about like you're talking about the price of HP and some of these other trips. They're really pretty comparable at this point. But you did the math, like you made a plan, which is exactly what I did. I didn't just like quit my job one day and be like, this is what I'm gonna do. I really like thought through it. I made a plan. I looked at the expenses. And you will meet a lot of people who say that traveling is actually cheaper than living in a singular place. And I think that's true for a lot of people. But unless you have, yeah, an apartment back home that you're also paying for and a car and car insurance, because
yeah, of course.
I also sold my car before I left, which now being in a pandemic is a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, that's
I don't live
another
in a place where you
story.
can get around without a car, but um, Oh, yeah. Okay. So there was seriously so much in there. I want to talk a little bit about going back to your step and your process and reframing your job, right? Because I think this is a really big block for people, and kind of the biggest block. Yeah, I feel like people can figure out the traveling and how they want to travel and stuff by experimenting, but the transitioning from having like a job where you have to be home or in person or you know a single place to reframing it mindset, but also like the practicalities of doing that. Can you just talk about your experience and like how you got to that point?
Yeah. So again, before I started traveling and before I could even consider that possibility, I had just one client at a time, and I worked 100% for that client. And I had like a few side projects here and there, but coaching missions and stuff like that. But most of my software development work was just with one client. And the first thing I did was to try and find like smaller projects with smaller companies who didn't need me 100% of the time.
Mhm.
And I could combine two or three of those projects at a time. The idea was one, not to put all my eggs in the same basket, to always have kind of a, okay, if one of my clients drops me, it's not the end of the world. Like I just have to find another one and I have some leeway there. And two, I wanted to also have the freedom to organize my time and not just sell my time, because that's really unsustainable. And especially when you travel and you want to experiment, like experience the places and just enjoy your time there. It's really important to leave some time in your schedule so that you can actually do that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I ended up again starting with just one software client and my online course. Then my online course, even though it started really well, it didn't go well on the long run, just because like the situation evolved with cryptocurrencies or whatnot. So
It evolves quickly.
yeah, it fell really quickly. Like early 2018 was like pff, it crashed.
Yeah.
So and my student numbers crashed as well. So yeah, I had to find another client for that, and I did. So I was able to again combine my time and not work like when I worked for one client at a time, I maybe worked 40, 45, 50 hours a week. Um depending on like the stress of the projects or whatever, and when I started doing like several clients at a time, I maybe did 30, 35 hours a week. So I kept some time for experiencing the place, for discovering new things, for doing other things than just like software development.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just wanted to keep that freedom. And what really helped me do that also is that when I get clients, I establish this kind of trust relationship with them that makes it so that they need me. Like they can't just drop me overnight.
Yeah.
They need my work and they pay more for my expertise than for my time. Of course, I still track my time and I invoice based on how much I've worked for them.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they understand that it's all about like the end result and the value I bring,
Mhm.
and that's really important because if you're just I've seen uh, some people just quit their job and go on um, it's not freelancer anymore, it's Upwork kind of
Mhm.
missions, which is very popular with software developers and stuff like that. But those are really cheap and you don't really build kind of trust relationships with your clients,
Mhm.
so they're really volatile and super like weak and fragile. So it's not something that I would advise. But yeah, try to find some clients that really trust you and that you trust will deliver like on invoicing and payments and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
they won't leave you stranded in at the end of the world without a paycheck. And yeah, it's the for me it was just the best way. And again, it's software development but slightly adapted to the nomad
Mhm.
lifestyle.
So, what would you say is like, I mean, you already kind of hinted that you were able to, because you were now making your own schedule because you had your own clients, which is what I do as well. You were able to kind of build in that time for yourself to pursue other interests like cryptocurrency or space or whatever. So, this is this sort of like teaching, coaching part of your business? Is it kind of new and has it grown out of the experience that you've had so far? Or is it something that you're always like wanted to kind of do but didn't have the time for?
Uh, like a lot of software developers, we all have side projects,
Yeah.
unfinished side projects. That's what I call permanently unfinished side projects, PUSP.
Permanently unfinished.
Uh, and yeah, we have a lot of those, and definitely being able to organize my own time left me with enough time to do it all, and also not just time, but it's crazy the amount of motivation and the amount of energy you get from working in crazy places, sharing all those ideas with like-minded people, and just like it's really stimulating as well, like
Mhm.
to be able to live like that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that I was able to and that I felt the energy to explore just by talking to people. And yeah, and sometimes some people actually like develop some new business leads and opportunities by traveling with people who
Mhm.
might be interested in what they're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, my energy, I've noticed that's one thing I've taken a lot of notice from this year is how energized I feel when I am in a new place and I'm exploring new, locations or just meeting new people versus this year with 2020 pandemic and like not really getting to go a lot of places. Like
Yeah.
I really, really felt that and I've had to figure out how I can keep that energy and those new ideas. Like there was a good, I think a lot of people went through this, like a couple months where creativity was just like, and a part of that was just the world was just, we didn't know what was happening. You couldn't future plan. You couldn't do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That I like couldn't, I didn't want to record. I didn't want to like write blog. Like my creativity was just like,
Yeah, I had the same experience. Like it was brutal. This whole I was in New Zealand when they went into lockdown. So
oh,
and
that was a
then
serious lockdown too.
yeah, and like 4 months and a half, I was just stuck in an apartment. So with a nice view and everything. That's a whole story. I had a really comfortable place, but still, it was a brutal shift from. I was in Argentina just before. Then I spent a month, yeah, a little over a month with a roommate in New Zealand, and then she had to go back to the US, and I was on my own in this small apartment in New Zealand. So yeah, it was a brutal experience, and it's sort of hard to explain to my friends from before because to them I'm just still abroad. I'm still in an idyllic location. I'm in New Zealand or now I'm in Greece, so same thing. But it's hard to explain like the change in energy and the change in just uh, lifestyle because I can't travel wherever I want. Greece is nice, but it would not be my first choice if I could choose any place, and also unable to join my friends and like the people I met over the years. So
Mhm.
that's also suffering. And the kind of the image I had in my mind is like going from my old life to the nomad life was like leaving the Matrix from Neo, you know. And then this pandemic is like Neo being stuck in the train station at the end of Reloaded, you know, and he doesn't know how to get out. That's exactly where I am right now.
Oh
I'm
my
stuck in the
gosh.
train station. I'm looking for the train man.
So what about you kind of mentioned, and I have the same issue where my friends now are just like all over. Like even within the US, I've lived in multiple places. And since I've left, my friends have also left to go back to, different locations. And so how have you been kind of maintaining that community?
I try to attend most of the online events that Hacker Paradise is organizing. So we have some Zoom calls sometimes, like co-working sessions where we just work on our stuff, but with the webcam on.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. It's of course it's very limited. And then like we have WhatsApp groups and everything where we can chat on a regular basis. But yeah, I definitely miss that part, and I can't wait to get back on the road because it's painful right now. And it's something that surprises even me because again, I'm a diehard introvert. I don't need people. I need a lot of me time to recharge. But yeah, some of the people I met on Hacker Paradise, it's like we share so much, and also yeah, it's just another way to experience the world. It's very unique.
Hmm. So, uh, what's next for you? Like you said, you're in Greece. Do you see yourself going anywhere anytime soon? I know Europe's landscape looks a little different than
Yeah.
mine currently.
It's hard to tell. That's another part also that I had to work on. I developed my resilience and being able to be comfortable with discomfort. Because right now I just have no plans beyond a month. So I have my place here booked until the end of the October. I probably will extend it till the end of November, I guess. And the only reason I'm doing it is just because one, I can't go to any of the places where I would like to go, and two, Greece is still one of the countries where they managed the pandemic the best in Europe, at least. Of course, the best place was New Zealand, and if I could have, I would have stayed there,
Yeah.
definitely. Unfortunately, they extended the tourist visas until the end of September, and that was it. So I had to go. But yeah, Greece is not bad, and that's also one of the cool things with nomadism is that you can do some geo arbitrage. You can choose the places where you want to
True.
go based on whatever criteria matter to you. And right now, the criteria that matter matter to me the most are that safety and health and stuff like that. I really don't want to catch this thing. I really don't want to spread it. So I'm being extra careful, even overly cautious, I guess. But yeah, here, like in supermarkets and everything, everyone wears a mask. There's no question about it. In taxis, same thing. So it feels very safe.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I'm always going to look at that until I can jump in line and get my shot with the vaccine. That's definitely
I know.
going to be the new normal.
Yeah. So, for aspiring nomads who, especially at this time, are kind of like questioning the lifestyle because it's different. It's just very different. They're still nomads. We still exist. It just, our lives like a little different right now. Um, but what like is your best advice for them? Like, what would you say? Yeah. What do you like to tell people who want to, transition into this lifestyle?
Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit philosophical, but the one of the reasons why I wanted to travel, and I've always wanted to travel, is that some of the issues that we're facing as a species, as a society, um, climate change used to be the primary one. Now we have this pandemic. They share one thing in common. They are global issues. They don't care about borders. They don't care about which country you were born in. They don't care about the color of your passport. They just affect everyone. And it's even more obvious with the pandemic than with climate change.
Hmm.
How amazing, how appalling it is that there's been absolutely zero international collaboration, no coordination whatsoever. Every country has taken their own measures. Everybody is running in all directions like headless chicken. It makes absolutely no sense. And they could have they could have agreed on what the measures were and what the safety measures were in airports and stuff. But because they didn't, that's why it's so hard to deal with this kind of issues. And again, same thing with climate change. The For me, it's more and more obvious that the only way that we can tackle those issues in the future uh, is if we get to some level of global governance. We need to have some decision power at the earth level to make decisions, regulate, um, and yeah, just coordinate efforts. And all such international efforts have failed miserably so far. For climate change, think of the Kyoto Protocol, think of the Paris Accords. They've all failed.
Hmm.
And now we have the pandemic, same thing, no coordination whatsoever. So until we have this kind of global governance, not global governments, that's a different thing, but we need some sort of decision power. And the the best way, I wouldn't say the only way, but for me the best way to reach that sort of governance at a global level is if we raise global awareness, if people are aware of the impact of their local decisions on the entire world. When a Brazilian votes for Jair Bolsonaro, when an American votes for Trump, when uh, somebody in Asia lets plastic waste from the Western world pour into their countries, all of those things, they have impact on resources that we all share. And the best way to kind of raise that kind of global awareness is by moving around, is by traveling. So in a sense, I think us digital nomads, we are kind of the forefront of that movement. But I would really hope that after this is all over, more people do that effort, especially if they want to, like explore, open your eyes, see what's happening, share it with people back home. And yes, it would mean to a certain extent more plane trips. And I know it's controversial, and I know that some people blame nomads for all the carbon that they put into the atmosphere because of plane trips. For me, that's a short-sighted view. Yes, we can make planes cleaner, and it will happen over time. And it might happen that until we have those, we will travel more and we will put more kerosene carbon into the atmosphere. But on the long run, I don't see how we can work around this to build that sort of global awareness that in turn will bring us global governance that will actually solve, like help us solve those issues.
Mhm.
So my message is just, if you want to do it, and don't let yourself be influenced by those like short-sighted kind of nationalist or local perspectives.
Mhm.
Um, that won't save us in the long run.
Yeah. Travel with a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
cover a lot. No, it was awesome. Thank you so much for all your insights. I love it because I feel like you've had a different experience than I've had, even just as a nomad, which I mean, that is what being a nomad is. Like you kind of you figure it out, you do it the way that you want to do it, right?
That's also an important message for anyone who wants to try. There are so many ways to be a nomad. It's not just the one way, and you can define your own criteria. You can define your own parameters and do it on your terms. And
Mhm.
between, I don't know, a drop shipper stuck in Chiang Mai because he cannot afford to pay a plane ticket back home, and somebody who travels like a backpacker who couch surfs every 2 weeks or something. There are so many different ways of doing it, and
Mhm.
so it's really important that you try it, that you don't uh and that you try different things and different ways of doing it
Mhm.
until you find and again, it's not for everyone. For some people, they would just realize that, well, okay, I need stability, I need my routine, I need one place to be in, and that's fine.
Mhm.
uh, but again, you can do it for a few months a year, every year, and then go back to your home base. You can do it for a few years and then settle down if that's what you want to do. For me, I, I see it as pretty much a permanent thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
there are so many ways of doing it. So yeah, don't hesitate to try and define your own way of doing it.
Yeah. Don't limit yourself to just what you see online because it's not like that, but I wouldn't, and that's the rose colored glasses of it, right? That's not the rest of us on just normal people out. Just this is just our chosen lifestyle. So, well, thank you so much, Sebastian, for joining us today. And be sure to subscribe for more interviews with other nomads and online business owners, as well as travel tips. And I will see you next week.